When I think of Sunderland now, it's a manager whose name I can't pronounce, a squad whose names I've never heard, and an accent I can barely understand. And for all that, they're probably at least 10 points above Manchester United in the table I pretend doesn't exist. Pete and Remo probably feel the same. We might be joined by Pete at some point. We're now a good half an hour into his technical problems, so let's see how that turns out. Helping us with all of that, we're hoping for some wise words from the Wise Men Say podcast. Goldy has joined us, and Goldy, you must be expecting 3 or 4-0 at Old Trafford to Sunderland.
Do you know what we did at pod yesterday? And we had Lee Howie on, who used to play for Sunderland, and me and the other co-host were saying, this is the first time probably in our lifetime where we've gone to Old Trafford, thinking, I might be a bit gutted if we don't get something. And he was very much, come on, don't get carried away, remember player for player, they're much better than us still, and any kind of result would be great. So I do kind of think that. Not sure you agree. You agree.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, the problem is with United, it's Murphy's law at the minute. Whatever can go wrong does go wrong. And whilst I think you may be right, I don't think there's 11 players there better than all 11 Sunderland. I think you could put a good argument for there being 5 or 6 players from each team in a best 11. But yeah, I mean, I think the problem is certainly at Old Trafford at the moment. Although the Chelsea game was a little bit different because they started well and the crowd got behind them. Obviously the sending off and the goal soon after, it lifted everyone. But then you could tell again, the second half with, when they started sitting back, the crowd get on their backs, and that's what worries me tomorrow. Is Sunderland have clearly got a good defensive record this season, and if United aren't all over them early on, I can see moaning. I can see them getting on the players' backs, and that's what worries me, because it doesn't do anyone any good, and ultimately it will affect the performance on the pitch. So I think it's a 50-50 game tomorrow. I really do, and fingers crossed from our point of view, but we need some of these newer players, Sesko, Cunha, to put their hand up. And Bruno, to be fair, although I do accept he's being played in the wrong position.
Do you think that United fans are bad when you say getting on the players' back? They've been quite famous in the last 10, 12 years for being very good about the manager, when a lot of other fans would have turned earlier and stuff like that. So we spoke right at the beginning of the season, before the first game, about potential changes in atmosphere in Old Trafford. Do you think, Remo, that it has changed, and do you think that that's potentially more volatile because of that?
Yeah, a Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff is an interesting one for me, because I think you get a lot more, how can I put it, tourists, people who maybe are a bit more open to the likes of social media and the opinions they see on social media, and maybe will be a bit more vocal with their displeasure.
Have you noticed any difference down the years then, Goldy, like in terms of when was the first time you went to Old Trafford and then the last time?
My first trip to Old Trafford was in the FA Cup in 1996, or the 95-96 season, when Sunderland won what is now the Championship. And that was a season when you caught Newcastle, wasn't it? When you were 12 points behind, and you were just starting to bring through the young kids there. Nicky Butt scored in that game, and we should have won 2-1. I think Eric Cantona, Eric Cantona equalised with a few minutes left. Interesting from that, because we were talking yesterday again, Lee, how he was on the bench in that game and come on. And one of our goals, both of your goals, I think Peter Reid, who was our manager at the time, thought our keeper Alec Chamberlain should have done better with. And that was what made him think, if we're gonna get promoted, we need to go and sign a better keeper. And he brought a young lad in on loan. And I'll be surprised if you can even remember this.
Perez?
No, Shea Given. Because he doesn't mention it, because he's obviously Newcastle legend. And
was he, a Blackburn?
He was a Blackburn. He was a young kid, yeah. So he might have been was it Black? It might have been a Celtic. I can't remember. Blackburn or Celtic, but he was absolutely unbelievable for us. He was just a young kid, and he came and he set a new club record for clean sheets. He was 19-year-old, and it's still the only medal he's ever won, I believe. But he doesn't say anything about it. We're like his dirty little secret. So most football fans in the world aren't even aware that Shea Given played for Sunderland. There you go.
It was new to me.
Well, that's deliberate from his end.
So it was very different. So I remember I was at those games, and I remember that that really well. And people were moaning about the atmosphere then, but it was a very different makeup. If you had tourists then, they were altogether of a different kind from the people who are now kind of like tourists for likes and tourists for clicks that you get now in the ground. So, it's a really easy stick to beat United with, because everyone's like, atmosphere at Old Trafford. The atmospheres are shit everywhere, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Compared to what they used to be. Yeah. But do you see is it a big thing among Sunderland fans to be like, oh yeah, there you go, we're going to Disneyland again?
Yeah, no, but everything's in context, isn't it? I think Man U fans are being really patient of what's happened over the last sort of however many years it's been since Ferguson retired, because where you finished in the league table last season, I mean, why wouldn't you be unhappy about that? Like, let's be real, you're going and you're paying your money, and Man United still have that global pull that you can't really buy. So I've noticed when I get up in the press box, which is Sunderland and Newcastle this season, but the company I do the broadcasting for only do Premier League games, so it's been Newcastle primarily. And it's still the only game that Newcastle have where the press box is absolutely rammed and it's full. And honestly, lads, it doesn't happen with anywhere else. So you can't buy that. Man City tried to buy it and you can't. And Newcastle have had a little bit of a go trying to buy it and you can't. So what you need is a football team to match that, don't you? I mean, you mentioned tourists. We don't get tourists. I don't know if I'd want them. I don't know if I'd want them or not. It'd be good for the crowd, size. Yeah, size. But when you get to even Newcastle to an extent have a tourist element. And Sunderland don't have that at all. You're relying on people who live in Sunderland and the outside areas, and that's it.
Is there a big lobby on the back of that for your own airport then?
Oh my! I mean, it's quite insane, isn't it? That. It's just the superiority complex I have spreads over so many ridiculous places that they think it's an insult to suggest that they've got there's an airport named Newcastle Airport, even though all of the local councils have equal ownership of it. It's bizarre. Like, is that a flex? Do you flex that with Liverpool fans? That you've got a bigger airport?
Are you asking people our age for social media language? We're really bad at it. We don't fly.
It's bizarre. It is. Social media is the worst for it, but I think it spreads beyond that. It's like Sunderland announce a signing, and all the replies from the Newcastle fans are, "What airport did he land at?" And you're like, "Oh my god, how is it even a thing?" It's mental. It's absolutely mental. That insults resort to like inferior shopping facilities that you might have and stuff. That's what it gets like from there, and it's pathetic.
This was a rich and unexpected scene I've just picked there. But when you potentially get your third or fourth goal tomorrow, like, you will be singing "Sacked in the Morning." Do you, Remo, think it's there's a potential for this to be Amorim's last home game?
I think if that nuclear option was there of a kind of 3-0 home defeat to Sunderland, I would think they would have very little option, because you're going to Anfield 2 weeks after that.
International break.
The killing
season, they call it, don't they, the manager?
Yeah, exactly. And my whole stick with this is I've lost a lot of faith in him over certainly the start of this season, in his absolute unshakable faith in a system that pretty much every other manager in the Premier League is picking apart week by week.
It's not hard to prepare for, is it? Because what's coming.
You know what's coming, and this is the problem. I mean, you look at Brentford with a relatively a very inexperienced manager, and he just planned and got it dead right. And we lose 3-1 to what is a pretty poor Brentford team. I don't know. Is the answer? My issue is I just can't see who else is there. People are going on about this Palace manager, but
plays 3-4-3, but they do well. But he's also got Adam Wharton and a striker who scores goals, and probably a keeper who isn't a lunatic.
Yeah, and there are mitigating factors for Amorim's success or lack of it. I think if he's going to be so dogmatic, he's got to be able to. He's just got to be able to change. It's as simple as that. And if he doesn't, there is only one way this is heading. Whether that is after tomorrow and a sound beating, I don't think it will. I don't think Sunderland are that kind of team who's going to turn up and absolutely pummel us. But I think they could quite easily, hold us at bay for a while and pick us off in the second half when, as I said, if the crowd start grumbling and what have you. And I don't think, let's have it right. You were right, Andrew. I don't think, we have been patient, and I think the atmosphere generally is supportive of the team. There's not been that many serious rumblings of discontent. I just think I've just got a bad feeling about tomorrow, I suppose, is the answer to that. And I've got a bad feeling, therefore, about his tenure at Old Trafford coming to an end sooner rather than later, I'm afraid.
He always seems to get a win that just gives him that stay of execution, doesn't he?
Exactly, yeah.
And my concern is that's going to be tomorrow, because we're talking here and it sounds like we're going to be a worst nightmare on paper, because we'll just set up and we'll be hard to beat, and that is what we'll do first and foremost, and then we'll pick our mums to go a bit later in the game usually. But, and we spoke at the start where we're saying you look at player for player, somebody like Fernandes can just smash one in from 25 yards, can't he? He's got that. He's got that in his locker, and not many teams have players who can do that. I've got a feeling Cunha's going to start playing well eventually, so it feels like law of averages. It's probably going to come, and I just think it would follow the pattern, wouldn't it? That they'd scrape a win, and everybody would say, right, is this the time? Has the corner been turned now? And then you'll go, did you say you got Liverpool after that?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
After international
and it's
break.
the international break, isn't it? But I don't think scraping a win would do it. I think that when they started against Chelsea, but for Casemiro being sent off, they looked like they would have battered Chelsea 4 or 5-0 because Maresca didn't react well. Anyway, this is rather a lot of football on the United side. It's not what we really do. But we have to talk about Sunderland. Why have they started so well, or is that just a perception and they're actually playing Brentford and Brighton and Bournemouth, who people tell me are 3 different teams, but I've seen no credible evidence.
The fixed list's been kind, I think, but you've got to capitalise on that. Southampton and Ipswich played these teams last season as well, and we're on a point behind what Southampton got all of last season. The recruitment's been good. It's been really good. Our defence and goalkeeper in particular are, these aren't plucky results. They are really good international standard defenders. So we've got, like Alderete, who plays centre-half, we got from Getafe, but he was in the La Liga team of the year. He's a Paraguay regular international. It's one of those where I don't know how he hasn't been picked up. McQuellier, who plays centre-halves, played for PSG, and he was in the Leverkusen team that won the German league. They're the good players. Robin Roof's the goalkeeper's in the Holland squad now, who's an absolute steal. We got him for like £8 million, and he's just looked $1 million. Slight error for the Villa goal in the draw. Honestly, you just... when you got a dodgy keeper and the ball goes somewhere where of course you do.
Oh yeah, we know that. Yeah.
And the ball sort of goes anywhere near the box and you get a bit nervous. There's none of that with him. There's absolutely none of that with him. So that's the starting point. And then Xhaka sits in the midfield and just patrols it beautifully. He's been a revelation for us. Champions League level player deciding to come to Sunderland, and it's really, you've got to admire why he wanted to do it as well.
Xhaka Khan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he said, he's done it because he wants to be a manager. And he said he's just going to get, what experience is he going to get if he always just plays at a level of the Champions League? So he wanted to witness this side of it. I mean, what does that say about somebody's personality? So, yeah, I think it's the player quality. They've recruited really well. Young, energetic players mixed with a bit of experience. And I don't think it's a fluke. We aren't going to start suddenly conceding loads of goals if these players stay fit because they're too good for it. It's the other end of the pitch is my concern.
Right, well, let's hope we can exploit that tomorrow using the royal we. That sounds like a good time to call a halfway point, although I think we're somewhat beyond that, just because Pete seems to have joined us, even though he's down as Roy, and I can tell by the expression that he can hear us, so we're going to find out in a sec if we can hear him. In the meantime, do find us on all the socials. Just search Cream of Manchester. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are trying to grow it. Get in touch with us. Cream of Manchester 1878 at gmail.com. We were going to talk on the back of this about the 1996 FA Cup replay, and we could still do that because I think we only dealt with the home leg of it. Although that's probably the United leg.
That's the one I'd rather talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But Pete, brackets Roy, can you hear us, and do you remember that? Because we need to talk about other games of yore against Sunderland.
Just to answer your questions in that order, yes, I can hear you. Yes, it's Pete, not Roy. And I'm sorry for the delay in getting here. I had to get someone from the International Space Station in the end to connect me. But I'm here now. Nice to meet you, Goldy.
Yes, you too. Although we did breathe. We could hear each other earlier. We weren't the issue.
Yeah. Can I just ask Goldy a quickie?
Oh,
yes, of course you can.
But if you've covered it already, then you'll be able to magic it out. But Goldy, I don't know if you got on a beach this summer at all, but if you did you imagine in your wildest dreams you'd be invited onto a podcast sometime in October run by rabid Man United fans You've got a big smile all over your face because Sunderland's in 5th place, United's languishing in 14th, and Newcastle are just 1 point above the relegation area.
Yeah.
Was it on your bingo card?
No, I mean, we weren't even expecting to go up last season, really. I think we would have been happy with a push for the playoffs, I think. But what they've done, as I just said to the other lads there, they've just recruited really smartly and it's made the difference. I'm not going to go into the Newcastle thing too much because they'll finish above Sunderland, so I'm not going to play that card.
I didn't even know that. I will not look at it, and I've got no interest in Newcastle, which I know will surprise their online following or upset them anyway, because they seem to have a real obsession with us at the minute. But I just...
Oh, you mean you're not the rivals? Because that's what they tell us.
Yeah, God, I don't know. I presume there's loads of United fans, Manchester United fans in the northeast who feel something about that. But like, good luck to them. They're a big club and everything. But I say good luck. I don't mean that about the Saudi Public Investment Fund, but in general. But yeah, like nothing against them at all. Just like there's almost zero feelings for them. Quite
They'll
funny,
hate that.
you know.
They'll hate that.
Well, when you punch the horse punching is obviously funny, and I did break my foot up there once at the train station after in the same game that Keane got sent off for wet wiping Alan Shearer. But no, God, almost doesn't resonate. But Sunderland, on the other hand, tell me, Pete, about 74, 75.
Yeah, well, I guess over the years we've not had a lot of great games between Sunderland and United, not in the last 20 years or so, maybe 30, because we've not always shared the same league. And the league games have been a bit tepid. But in the Cup, that's been a different story. But just going back to one very outstanding league game, funnily enough, it took place in the only time United were in the second division since the 30s, and that was 74-75. Sunderland in the second division as well, trying desperately to get out. Good team, Sunderland. They'd beaten Leeds in the final the year before. So this was October 74. We played them at Old Trafford. They won the FA Cup at Wembley in 73. And 60,500 or so in the ground. I think Sunderland brought about 15,000 down. So it made for an absolutely great atmosphere. Unofficial segregation in those days, but Sunderland fans kind of behaved themselves. It was just a great atmosphere. And both teams desperate to get out the first division because they were in danger of becoming what we hate being labelled, which is sleeping giants, Anyway, great atmosphere to kick off the game. The 30th of November, I think it was. Sometimes these games with great expectation don't really alight, but this one did right away. I think Pearson put us ahead on around about 11 minutes, and we thought, this is great. Tommy Dock's team, I think we're already top of the league. We'd gone to the top of the second division early on, having gone down the season before. But within 3 minutes, Sunderland's Billy Hughes had put you 2-1 up, Goldy. Billy Hughes, for those that didn't see him, was just a great flair player, a Grealish, Giggs, great left foot, a lovely footballer, magical. And he put you 2-1 up. So obviously, mayhem at the scoreboard end of the ground with all the Mackham celebrating. And I don't think anybody had come close to beating us at Old Trafford that season till then. But after that, both teams went at it in true attacking style, going forward with power and pace. It turned out to be a great game, and United slowly got back into it. I think Morgan scored just after half-time, then Sammy Mack, and we won 3-2. But it was a classic game. Anyone that saw it, that loves football, whether they love Sunderland or Man United, it was just superb to watch. And the little oddity is, so in 74-75, the only television coverage we had on the BBC was highlights, no live games, that's cup matches and internationals. But Match of the Day was on every Saturday night, obviously. It was always a first division game. But for the first time, they chose it to be Man United versus Sunderland, a second division game. And they got lucky because it was a real classic. So they were allowed to show something like 50 minutes of what the first game and then about 10 minutes highlights of another. And that's all we got on a Saturday night. You can't believe it. But that Saturday night, the nation was treated to a classic.
Is this the tales you were brought up on, Goldy?
Do you know what? That game does get brought up, actually. I have read about that game and heard about that game before. Because it is as you've just said there, that Sunderland took a big following, which I had done. I think, did Sunderland have something to do with, in 1968, Man U not winning the league or something, or Man City winning it? Or...
Did City win there? They definitely won in the North East. I didn't know if it was Newcastle or something.
No, did Sunderland go to Old Trafford and win, I think?
They did. You're absolutely spot on. We're going neck and neck. Very, very reminiscent of 2012. in that I think City were ahead. City only kind of had to win. And they were champions. I'd have thrown away, so this was 67, 68, I'd thrown away a big lead, again, like 2012. But we were by then, I'm just trying to work out the dates, I don't think we'd actually beaten Madrid in the second leg, but we were on our way to the European Cup final, first English team to get there. So we started losing silly home games around about March and April. Yeah, City went to Newcastle and kind of had to win and won 4-3, again in a classic. And Sunderland carved out a 2-1 win at Old Trafford against a team that were 2 weeks later, no, probably 3 weeks later, crowned champions of Europe. Yeah, so you did. I'd forgotten the 68 one. I've just started to forgive you for the 2012 one.
Yeah, you didn't take that very well, did you? I noticed that on your notes earlier on. Yeah.
Well, what's
your
take on it? And then, because I don't think any of us had a great day that day, but I think Remo's might have been the worst.
My memory from that was like, I honestly think that fans of any team you're playing would have done something similar. I think it was just we were sitting there feeling sorry for ourselves. We'd had another crap season. That was the days when like we weren't even involved in relegation battles. We were just like nothingness. I think Martin O'Neill was a manager and we finished like 13th, and we were just so. It was disappointing to watch. I think that's what football fans are like, aren't they? I think they just wind each other up, and honestly, I don't think it was anything to do with it being Man United or because I like Man City better or anything like that. I think it was just they just reacted to the situation because the wait was so long, wasn't it? And you were kind of celebrating on the pitch, and I think it was just. See, I think fans of any team would have done the same.
I fully endorse that. I've never ever.
Well, you were joining in, weren't you?
Well, I wasn't.
Poznan. We've not even had to say Poznan because everyone knows what we're talking about on this pod.
In the Sunderland end, along with good several hundred United fans were in there that day. I'm sure. I certainly recognise quite a few knocking around. Goldy's spot on. That's what football fans do. Any team would have done that. Any team, it's like we used to moan about West Ham taking all that joy in denying us the league in '95. Was it '92 when they had nothing to play for and all that, and how West Ham celebrated? United are there to be shot at. We always have been. And we'd have done what Sunderland fans did. And the kind of this huge, grand offence that people took, that Sunderland would dare to mimic what City were probably doing at that very moment. I don't know, I didn't get it. Back in the day, that would have led to mayhem in the stands and quite a few charge sheets. But things have moved on, and that's life. And it was a bad day. It was a really, really bad day, and it just got worse and worse and worse from that moment. But anyway, I just can never work up that hatred for them doing that, because I just think, you know what, we'd have done it to them if the boot had been on the other foot. Yeah,
I mentioned once already, the Sunderland fans have a soft spot for Man United after that 12-point thing.
Yeah,
when Newcastle were top of Christmas. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier, but it's true. I remember that very well.
Just for Remo, I didn't realise you were in the with the home fans. I was in the United following. But what I found was strangest of all in that moment, because we finished the game, 1-0 win, all our players were on the pitch, and we knew that actually it wasn't 2-2 at City, it was 2-1 for Queen's Park Rangers. So City was 2-1 down, so we knew they were into extra time, but I don't think anybody expected City to even pull back 2 goals in that time. And what was very strange, all of a sudden there was a cheer went up from the Sunderland fans. And the word went round, people on radios and whatever, that City had scored. And seconds later, it seemed there was another cheer, but it seemed to be the same cheer. And we thought, well, that's a bit odd. They're cheering twice the same goal, the equaliser, and it don't make any difference. We're champions anyway. And for me and people around me, it seemed a few moments to take in that no, City had scored twice in that last, after United's game had finished. Did that come across to you?
Yeah, we were absolutely none the wiser, and I was kind of deliberately not looking at phones or anything like that. No, I just didn't want to know until it was absolutely confirmed. And to be fair, my recollection, I don't remember the United players or anyone celebrating, or the United end. I was looking down on it from the Sunderland end, and there was a couple of the players might have kind of moved towards the United end, but I don't remember any great celebrations. Because there's a great photo of Peanut, isn't there, Vance? Who's he's on that camera shot, just as obviously the word drops in the United
Yeah.
and that City have gone 3-2 up in his face.
Did try to get Peanut for this recording, but sadly, now he lives in Texas. The time zone didn't work for us.
But I mean, I just God, I remember we had to get back to Newcastle for our train back, and we were just sat outside that bar opposite the train station, and Ant Shaw was just he was absolutely furious. He was like, QPR have thrown that game. There's absolutely no doubt they've thrown that game. They've been paid off. They've thrown that game. And I think actually he still believes that now. Wayne Rooney obviously feels a bit that way, doesn't he? Because he mentioned it on his podcast the other day. But
ex-City manager in charge of the team, and the couple of ex-City players, and one of them having to be sent off.
Barton
and what
sent
Paddy
off,
Kenny
and then,
subsequently said, and getting beaten at his knee stick. But I don't let it bother me.
No, not me.
I guess Goldy, 2 years later, we were back up for the League Cup semi-final when we'd moved on to Moisey, and I think the first leg was at Sunderland, won it 2-1 in League Cup semi-final.
Oh, the penalties.
And the penalties.
Worst penalty shootout there's ever been in the history of penalty shootouts. Yeah. I think we won 2-1 in the penalty shootout, didn't we?
Yeah, I think it was 2-1 for Sunderland in the first game, 2-1 for United at the end of the second game, but then the penalties ended up 2-1, and it was 10 penalties because it was just bizarre, and it was. I mean, that was the January, and we'd had Januzaj had seemed to be like one of our little saviours, sort of an early version of Garnacho. But I think then United fans were behind Moyes, obviously that night at Sunderland and in the home leg. But this is January, doing the old come on, feel the noise, play like come on, David Moyes, play like Fergie's boys. So they were still behind him then. But I think the way it sort of got dragged out in that two-legged affair and the penalties, the tide started to turn there on Moyes. Later on, 2 months later, we'd lose to Liverpool at home 3-0 and City at home 3-0 within about a week and a half. But that night at Sunderland, the performance is just so... It's bad. Very Amorim-ish, I'd say, at the moment.
Well, it's been like that. It seems like it's been like that ever since Ferguson left for you, hasn't it? In a way, like at least we the thing is, beyond it, used to it. We're used to this. See? Historically we're a yo-yo team, so we kind of. I mean, we went wrong really badly recently. Obviously, we'd never suffered like we did. Yeah, I was at that game at the replay at Old Trafford. It was great for me. We took thousands down that day as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when Phil Bardsley scored, didn't he? And De Gea's hand disappeared.
Yes.
So, this is a counselling session, lads, or what?
Yeah, I have to say, this has been an absolutely terrible listen. And unless there's any business, I think our half an hour is up. Please do email us on creamofmanchester1878. Perhaps you want to get involved in this terrible catharsis, or just tell Remo that although these are very fair and balanced points, that your duty as a podcaster in the social media age about Manchester United is to upset people and do clickbait. Do like and subscribe for us on our YouTube channel, please. We are all off to watch replays of that Cantona chip over the Sunderland keeper who looked like
we didn't even get to mention
Miles
that.
Hunt.
Fuck's
I
sake.
think it's going to be one of them for the away game, probably under a new manager. It did look like Miles Hunt from the Wonder Stuff. If you are coming to Old Trafford, bring a hood and your best attitude. For example, I am still standing by David Moyes, but it is rank round here. It's going to be terrible weather. Mind the trams.